Superman is the most iconic character in all of fiction. With the symbol that's known by everyone around the world, his popularity is unmatched. Throughout the years, the man wearing red, blue, and yellow has had a ton of movies, and many of them I've not seen. Since Henry Cavill's sad retirement from the character, David Corenswet is now filling those shoes with his newest film, Superman, coming out this week. So I figured, why not do a little ranking comparing every live-action Superman movie? From the likes of Christopher Reeves' Superman, all the way up to David Corenswet's latest film. I'll also be including things like Donner's Superman 2 recut. However, I will be leaving things like Justice League off the list, as it's not a direct Superman movie. If his name's not in the title, it's not going to be in this video. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into Superman. Wow. Just wow. No wonder people hold this movie to such high regard. This is the first time I've ever seen this movie, and I'm now starting to understand why people have thought of it as the most quintessential superhero flick of all time. And not just because of the timing of when it came out, but just because the story, the hope, the tone, the music, and of course, Chris Reeve. Superman's origin is quite well known. However, as a first-time viewer, not only was I shocked to see Marlon Brando play Jor-El,
look how they massacred my boy.
but I thought the practical sets for Krypton were fun and interesting. Although, I don't know what Krypton's fashion sense is, cause my eyes! The moment Clark lands on Earth and spends some time with the Kents was very heartwarming too. Although I did feel like his origin with the Kents was kind of fast and rushed though. Jonathan Kent gets maybe 2 scenes with Clark and then dies immediately. Hell, Uncle Ben in the original Spider-Man had more of a presence before he died. But the real cherry on top is the moment Clark enters the Daily Planet until the rest of the film. Once you get 45 minutes into this film, it really is just a spectacle. Christopher Reeves steals the show. I was in shock at how he played this character. I don't know, but it's rare to see a man play Clark with so much clumsiness, awkward but humble energy. I haven't seen this ever. Truly understood the whole idea of people not seeing Clark as Superman, since he legit acts like 2 different people, and it's so entertaining watching him flip back and forth between them. Like after Superman's date with Lois and Clark goes on one with her right after, you see Clark widen his shoulders, clench his jaw, and lower his voice like Superman in Kent's clothes. Just perfect. I thought Lois was great too. Margot Kidder brings this joyous but stern and silly vibe to her, although she can't spell for shit.
There's only one P in rapist.
The entire vibe of the Daily Planet felt straight out of the comics for me. Lex Luthor was played brilliantly by Gene Hackman. I mean, the dude owns this role. He felt petty, narcissistic, but very smart and egotistic. However, his downfall was trusting his people, because he could have won if he didn't trust Miss Tessmacher. I think this movie relies less on such a captivating story, but more so how its tonality and the crew around it set the bar for what Superman should be. Every scene feels like Superman is giving the people of Metropolis hope. He's there up in the sky, giving everyone a sense of relief. I love the montage of him saving people all throughout the night, the bright colors on his suit, and John Williams' theme for this film is ridiculous. I mean, that shit hits like a ton of bricks right away and is so superhero coded. I couldn't help but enjoy my time immensely throughout this film, and seeing reviews from people on Letterboxd about how the theater experience for them changed their life with this film just warms my heart that superhero films like this evoked those emotions. For me, it was like that with The Amazing Spider-Man in theaters and Spider-Man 2 on VHS when I was 6. We really need to hold these studios accountable because superhero movies should be giving us these types of feelings all the time. With that being said, I'd give this movie an S tier. I will say though, reversing time by moving the Earth backwards is just dumb. Don't think I'd let that shit slide with y'all though. Now, I started with the theatrical cut of this film just because I wanted to keep the theatrical flow going before I dive into Donner's cut. As a film, I think this theatrical cut of Superman 2 is still pretty good. I had a great time with this one too, in large part due to Reeves' continued charisma in the role, as well as a lot of focus on Lois and their relationship. Maybe a little too much for my liking, but with Margot Kidder and Reeves, I could watch them all day. The movie takes Zod and his goons from the beginning of the previous film and has them released by some random nuclear blast that's conveniently close enough to the Phantom Zone prison they're in. Again, I don't want to overanalyze these films, but it's still kind of crazy. And after they kill some astronauts in space, they get the idea to go to Earth and conquer it, you know, like one does. However, while all this is happening, Clark goes out of his way to avoid taking these villains on, lets them cause havoc, all because he's knee deep in trying to get some action with Lois, you know what I'm saying? And gives up his powers too, just to be with her. Now, people give Henry Superman a lot of shit for his interpretation of the character, justifiably so. But Reeves here, willingly ignoring saving innocence just to have sex with Lois? Come on, Snyder criticizers, gotta keep the same energy here because that's crazy. Like I mentioned before, most of the film is built on Superman and Lois spending time together, which I thought was fun. Lois finally realizing Clark is Superman was great, and it led to a couple of funny scenes between them. I enjoyed seeing Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor again, especially paired up with the 3 Kryptonian soldiers near the end. I thought that was very fun. The whole final battle in New York was really entertaining in general, even though a lot of it doesn't hold up quite well. The tone, the hope, the music were all great again too. However, this film does do some things that I don't particularly love. The whole Superman giving up his powers for Lois, I felt was kind of rushed, especially since he gets his powers back again like 5 minutes later with no real explanation. Am I supposed to believe this one green rock just gives him all of his powers again? Come on, man. I thought Zod and his goons were kind of one note and boring, and the amount of random superpowers used for every character is wild. Telekinesis, Superman's logo shield thing.
What was that? Yeah, take that, you jerk. That was a minor inconvenience.
And the most egregious, a mind-wiping kiss. Really? We just making stuff up at this point. Overall, I think the sequel is fun, but it does have its issues, so I'd put this film in B tier. I wonder how different the Donner cut is to this. Let's find out. The Donner cut was a fun rendition of what was already a pretty decent movie. However, under the original director, it was a much better experience and much better edited film for me. I don't have too much to say regarding this film, as not many things were changed or omitted from the original. It's not a Zack Snyder's Justice League kind of film where it's greatly changed. However, I think things that were added, like Jor-El's major presence in the film, was greatly appreciated. A couple of gripes I had with the theatrical version was the amount of Lois and Clark scenes, yet I feel like they were much more natural here, and I can't help but think Lois pulling a blank gun on Clark was very clever and hilarious. While the loss of powers over a girl plotline I find pretty dumb, like, why can't Kryptonian men share human DNA? Like, did Jor-El not want Clark to reproduce? Clark getting his powers back through the use of his dad's ghost, while still kinda dumb, is much better than some random green crystal found on the floor. Lex's motivation to help Zod and his team was better here too, since he got the rundown on them through Jor-El as well. I also appreciated that the release of Zod from the Phantom Zone was actually connected to the nuke's explosion from the first film. The theatrical cut's version of this is much dumber. Now, the things I didn't like at all relate to the final 5 minutes. Like, why does Clark reverse time again in the same way as the first film? I think that's such a cop-out, and I don't know why Donner wanted to use that formula twice. It also makes the action of Clark beating up this dude way worse, since no one remembers that this guy beat up Clark earlier. Just looks like Clark is beating on this poor guy for no reason. Genuinely, most of the things I like that were changed come down to the form of Jor-El's inclusion and just more natural Lois and Clark scenes. So all in all though, I did like this version much better, and I'd happily throw it in A tier. It's got all the good parts of the theatrical, but the additions or changes in the Donner cut make it better for me. This movie is not at all what I thought it was going to be. Taking Superman and making him the secondary lead in his own movie, with Richard Pryor's Gus being the co-lead? Guess we got multiple Superman movies on this list that do that, huh? Gus is a computer programmer that gets interest in this billionaire CEO because he hacks into one of his secure computers and takes $85,000. Get that bread, man. It's tough out here. Because of this, Gus gets thrust into working with this billionaire, causing havoc in favor of his boss, which gets the attention of Superman. Now, like the previous movies, Reeves is an absolute gem. I really love not only his Superman portrayal, but his Clark Kent portrayal too. Scenes he shares with Lana Lang, who's introduced in this movie, specifically at the high school reunion or whenever Clark is present with her son, was really great. It's scenes like these that I wished were focused on more, because halfway through the movie, Superman gets corrupted and starts turning evil, causing a mental battle between evil Superman and Clark. That was really entertaining, but I was stuck watching boring nonsense with the billionaire and Gus in between all these cool scenes. I'm a sucker for man versus self kind of battles, and while the logistics of this fight don't make that much sense, I can turn my brain off and accept it's a deeper metaphor for Clark overcoming his evil and cruel side. Alright, however, I really wish this concept was focused on Clark the whole time because, well, the billionaire and Gus plotline is boring and not very entertaining, as I said. I'll say the action holds up a bit better than the previous one, but that's a minimal difference. I did enjoy Lana Lang being introduced here, and I thought her chemistry with Clark was great. However, it's hard to care about characters when half of a movie is built upon ones you don't really care for or enjoy. Also, Lois goes on vacation in this movie and is just not in it, like at all, until the final scene. So, what was up with that? Although Reeves turns in a great performance as usual, and the quieter, more down-to-earth moments are great, the rest of the movie is slow and boring. Definitely not worth watching again. D-tier film for me. I'd never put this one back on. Well, the final Chris Reeve Superman flick. I've always heard nothing but terrible things about this one. However, it is truly something to see for the first time. Now, I'll give this movie some credit. While the film is mostly horrible to watch, for instance, the plot is bad. The VFX is horrible. I mean, it is just dog water, and the new characters don't add much. I can't say it was totally uninspired. While Superman 3 bored me beyond belief, at least this film realized this issue and kept him the main focal point. Lois returns in this movie too, and Margot Kidder continues to play her well, although her lust for Superman gets a little too overwhelming this time around, I'd say. Her chemistry with Reeve is a continued blessing though. I'm glad Gene Hackman's Lex makes a return again, but his annoying-ass nephew really takes away from those scenes because it is hard to watch. Lex is still a very fun presence in the movie, even though his plans are quite ridiculous. However, I'll give credit where credit's due, because this movie does take a stand on politics, making it clear that Superman thinks the arms race is bad, and decides to take every nuclear weapon and hurl it into the sun? Isn't that nice? Only Lex takes a stand and grabs a strand of Superman's hair and creates a living nuclear weapon called Nuclear Man. Then the rest of the movie is them fighting. Props to the writers for at least trying to go political here. It may not be amazing, but at least it's a try. But yeah, this movie just looks bad, man. Every fight sequence looks terrible, especially when Superman and Lois start to fly. The battle scenes with Nuclear Man are just, I can imagine watching this movie with some friends on a few brewskis and then just making fun of this film, and it would be a great time. Another positive is that the film is only 85 minutes long, so God bless. The shining light of this movie is easily Chris Reeve though, so if you just like to see Chris Reeve as Superman, then maybe you'd want to go watch this movie. No matter how shitty the movie, this man is Superman and Clark perfectly. Shame he went out with this way as the character. Dude deserved a better send-off. For me, this movie is going to be a D-tier film, but I do think I will rewatch this one again, just so I can shit on it with friends while we drink. Superman Returns was one of the films in this series I had the least expectations for, since this movie had left my brain entirely for most of my life. I had never come around to watching it until this video, but little did I know that this film is a spiritual successor to the Reeves' films, taking homage and finding its balance between sequel and reboot. I had no idea that that was the case, so I guess that's pretty cool. This movie is supposed to take place right after the events of Superman 2, basically erasing the events of Superman 3 and 4. God bless, because those movies suck. So I was interested in this movie off rip. With my initial viewing, I genuinely enjoyed this flick way more than I thought I was going to. I vaguely remember people in the past scoffing at Brandon Routh as Superman, or saying this movie was bad, but I don't know. What were people thinking, really? I thought he was fantastic in this role. He really brought the Reeves mannerisms to life, embodying not only a broad-shouldered, strong Superman, but a clumsy, goofy, and awkward Clark Kent. Every time he was on screen, I thought he did a wonderful job. Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor was a scene stealer. I thought he brought the sauce to that kind of guy, and he felt like Gene Hackman from the originals to me, especially with his plans for a Kryptonite island used for real estate. I love how Lex Luthor is just a douchebag real estate agent in these movies. In the final act, when he and Superman reunite, it feels like they've known each other for previous films, and that's great actor work, considering they're new actors to these roles. I thought the girl who played Lois was decent, although her chemistry with Superman lacked the fun and whimsy Margot Kidder brought with her version of Lois Lane. I also found her central story arc involving having Superman's kid, not telling her fiance or child where he's from, is kind of fucked up. Poor James Marsden, first The Notebook and then this movie, and X-Men? Poor guy cannot escape the cuckland. Speaking of James Marsden, Richard is a cool guy too. Dude just wants the best for Lois and has this weight of Superman, and now his not real son there. Damn, the more I think about it, the more I realized how fucked up Lois is for this. Anyways, what I truly like about the movie is how its tone is still very hopeful and endearing. It's a warm atmosphere, aside from the cold scenes on the Kryptonite island. The better budget and more modern look help former locations from the Reeves pictures breathe new life. The Daily Planet looks amazing, the Fortress of Solitude looks bigger and better, and the flight sequences look tremendous. A lot of homage was paid not only to Reeves' movies, but to the comics themselves, which I thought was fantastic. I thought the action sequences were great when they happened, mentioned, the airplane catch scene is very well made, as well as the bullet entering Superman's eye scene, really cool. In terms of things I just didn't really like, the runtime got to me. It's such a long movie. At 2 hours and 35 minutes, I don't know how this film is as long as it is. Also, Lois's character felt super off to me, and the inclusion of Jason as Superman's son still sits wrongly in my stomach. I don't know if I really like that. It felt like a last-minute inclusion. However, the final speech Superman gives from his father to Jason was very heartwarming.
The son becomes the father, and the father becomes the son.
I thought Bryan Singer, for what it's worth, created a Superman movie and a DC film that is truly underrated. It's easily the most forgotten about DC projects since release, and I'm glad Routh got to play the character again, even in a small bit, a decade later for the CW, and got some recognition for that, because I think he's a very good Superman actor. For me, I'm gonna put this movie in B tier. I fucking love this movie, and I'm not afraid to admit it, nor am I going to sit here and act like it's trash. The whole foundation of this channel was built on my appreciation for this goddamn thing. I got into YouTube because I needed to express my love and sadness for Henry Cavill's departure of the character, and now that I've happily moved on, I can express these opinions as follows. Because upon rewatching all these movies for the video, coming back to Man of Steel felt like a blessing. It's a movie that is so unnecessarily nitpicked by reviewers online for the most illegitimate reasons. I can't fathom the hate it receives. I think due to where the DCEU led, people harp on Man of Steel for future installments without looking at it objectively in the eyes of an origin one-off film on its own. For me, this movie works tenfold. Forget about Batman v Superman or Justice League and all the shit that happens afterwards. Just look at this movie by itself. Obviously, I don't think it's perfect. How characters are interpreted here are very wonky, but does that mean the whole film is a flaming turd? I hardly think so. The opening of this movie is a work of art. Krypton feels alive, and the action draws you into the Zod coup right away. You get introduced to Jor-El and Lara, the treason of Zod and his followers, the reasons for Krypton's explosion, and why Zod plans to find Kal on Earth, all within the first 10 entertaining minutes. Although Brando is great, Russell Crowe as Jor-El will not be topped. His energy to the character, his soft-spoken and wise nature, make for a character that is genuinely insightful and interesting to watch for the whole film. Mind you, this whole action scene has Hans Zimmer slaying in the studio the whole time. Although John Williams' theme is a classic, Zimmer's music makes you feel transcendent. It makes you feel everything going on in every scene. It's something I don't feel with many composers nowadays. By the time Clark gets to Earth, you start to unpack how this guy is going about his life. People too often compare this movie to Reeves, and I think that's fair. However, these are two totally different adaptations. This movie explores what Superman means to Clark before what it means to the people, where in the original, Clark becomes Superman in a quick 12-year fast-forward montage, where it then focuses on what Superman means to those people in Metropolis. Both are great for doing that. I just think Man of Steel gets criticized for it way more. Clark spends time learning what these powers and his presence on the planet mean to him, with scenes like his first flight showing exactly that, which is the top-tier scene, but also incredibly written and filmed with Jor-El's dialogue over it.
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards.
Now, many critics hate Jonathan Kent's character in this film, and while I mostly understand that, I do think there's great moments between Clark and him in this film. The post-bully talk, where John tells him hurting others won't be good for him, great. Jonathan telling Clark he will always be his son after showing him his ship, fucking excellent. The only issue I have is Jonathan saying letting people die is okay, to shelter Clark from exposure. I don't think John would ever say that at all. I understand keeping a secret identity, but that would never get in the way of Clark helping people or trying to. This movie's use of building Lois Lane and Clark's dynamic is very fun too. I like how Lois is figuring out who Superman is before dealing with Clark at the planet. She does reporter shit in this film. She actually investigates all of these things to try and figure out who Clark is. My one gripe with Margot Kidder is that she literally worked with Clark for so many months and then just like figures out Clark is Superman randomly. Amy Adams is a great Lois too, in my opinion. I think she totally nails the aggressive, gets shit done kind of attitude. I love how symbolism is used to portray Clark in this movie. I'm not a huge fan of Superman being compared to godlike figures, but with Man of Steel, I think it's used properly. Again, this is the first movie. I don't mind interpreting the character in a different way, as long as it leads to who he truly is later, which these fucking movies don't do. But that's not on this film, that's on those. The talk Clark shares with Jor-El about being something humans can believe in, aspire, hope to, give the people of Earth something to strive towards is so fucking good. Are people just not listening to the film? And then we have Zod, who's perfectly portrayed by Michael Shannon. I mean, this dude is criminally underrated as Zod, and his performance in general. When he loses all of Krypton, you can feel the rage and anger that persists inside him for what Clark's just done. His motivations may seem silly, but they make sense. However, the main form of criticism this film gets is with its final battle scene. Lord have mercy, have I never seen more people complain about destruction in a superhero movie in my life. I get it, Superman is supposed to save people, but when a literal planet-destroying machine is going off, I'm sorry, he needs to destroy it in order to move on. And when a literal wartime general with the same power set is attacking him, you can't just move on. If he did, General Zod would just kill even more people. He had to get Zod in a weakened state as best as he could. Destruction was just a byproduct of the battle. He would have moved somewhere else if he could, but Zod literally wanted to be in the city. I've never seen anyone criticize the Avengers for literally destroying all of New York City in the first film. In that movie alone, they killed thousands of innocent civilians, which was actually proven by proxy of the Sokovia Accords and Ross proving they did do that. But for Man of Steel, everyone is just out here complaining about Clark killing innocents when that wasn't the intention at all. Just like boggles my mind. Clearly you can see he's upset by the end of this fight having to kill Zod because he knows how much destruction and pain that just occurred. This movie has so many shots that are so beautiful to look at too, with so much sauce behind it. The music makes you feel weightless, like you're ready to fly. Henry Cavill gives such a great performance, and it fucking sucks that we couldn't get a Clark Kent style film sequel for him. Like the Batman, this movie focuses on the hero first, secret identity second, which everyone loves the Batman for that style, you hated Man of Steel for. Make it make sense. Clark questions who he is, what he should do, even talking to a literal priest, a human priest, to get some advice on what he should do for this event. Those are Superman traits. It's just no film before this wanted to tackle those ideas before he fully becomes Superman, but this film did. I'll passionately defend this movie till my dying breath. It's a fantastic movie through and through, A tier without question. Also, Christopher Nolan wrote the story for this film. No wonder it's good. Now, this movie actively pisses me off. Why? Because it single-handedly destroys any sort of character progression that Man of Steel set up. Not only for him, but for Batman, and inserts a forceful team-up moment and terrible world-building as well. Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, because I know some people in the comments are going to say this version is better. Well, is not. This film tries to portray itself as a different kind of movie, and it does feel that way at first. Its tone is darker. It's trying to say something within the first half of the film. The question society poses on whether Superman is a threat or not, or should be held accountable for his endeavors, is something that could have been excellent to see for a sequel. It also builds on the foundation of Man of Steel, where humans were scared of Clark's admittance into the world as Superman. However, the reasons these don't work for me are as follows. Batman is here, and takes up time building so much resentment for Superman that we don't get to spend any time with Clark dealing with the world's judgment of him. Again, there's barely any Clark here, besides a few scenes where he investigates Batman and Gotham. It feels like another Superman outing, except all of that hope and symbolism that Jor-El insisted Clark has in Man of Steel is actively destroyed by Snyder and writer Chris Terrio and David S. Goyer in this film. A Superman that says,
No one stays good in this world.
is fucking crazy. Even the way the film shoots Superman is brooding, dark, at night, and Henry's constantly grimacing in each shot. Like, come on, man, let the man at least feel like he isn't Injustice Superman yet, for Christ's sake. And I know I mostly should keep this video related to Superman, but how Batman is used in this film is horrible too. I've never been a fan of Batman killing, but Snyder going out of his way to blatantly show him doing it is wild work. Maybe the idea of Batman being against Superman would have worked well if he didn't kill and saw Superman kill Zod willingly. That way their moral compasses would be different. But how can I side with Batman when he's gunning down criminals, blowing them up, or shooting them straight up? It's hypocritical as hell. It also devalues what makes Batman cooler than most vigilantes or anti-heroes in comic media. What makes Batman separate from those like the Punisher is that his code keeps himself in check, as he would become the world's greatest serial killer if he didn't. So anyways, Batman motivations for wanting Superman to be put in check do make sense as a contingency, sure, but just straight up killing him? I mean, there's no real reason for that, and again, promotes Batman as this seamless killer that he's not supposed to be. Then you have Lex, who's horribly casted with Jesse Eisenberg, giving off manic, twink, e-boy energy as he orchestrates this brawl between Batman and Superman. Now, I think Lex tormenting Superman is totally in character. I just don't like the idea of him admitting to it before Superman even fights Batman, because Superman fighting Batman becomes pointless, as he could have easily explained the situation instead. Then there's the whole Martha plotline, which is just so dumb no matter which way way you twist it. I get what they're going for. Martha makes Batman realize Superman is human and has a mom too. But why would anyone ever call their mother by her real name to a stranger? And then Batman becomes best buddies with Superman after this? Am I crazy? I feel like there needed to be a moment where Batman should have investigated Clark's file and realized he had a mom or something, just to find out Clark was telling the truth, and then goes on to save her by himself, because the way it plays out in the film is such a 180 flip that it's like nauseating. Then there's the whole Doomsday fight. I mean, just ridiculous team-up baiting, going from the end of Man of Steel, where you're expecting a deep dive into how Superman lives as Clark, his day-to-day, how he operates now that Superman is known worldwide, and getting this, a movie deconstructing Hope, his character, and forces other heroes in pointless dream sequences to set up future team-up movies that don't go anywhere, is just saddening. This movie's ideas for Superman aren't horrible, and the tone it has for Batman is great, but I feel like there's two movies in here that do not coexist well. Also, it's insane how this is the second film in not just Henry's Superman tenure, but as the intro to this universe's Batman and Wonder Woman. Wild. This movie is the prettiest, best sounding, terrible movies ever made. D-tier movie. I will say, the warehouse scene is one of the greatest Batman scenes ever created though. Peak cinema. Yes, I'm in my car. I have to scream sometimes and the neighbors don't like that when I'm inside. That being said, if you're enjoying this video, hit that subscribe button. What are you doing? I know half of you aren't really subscribed right now watching this. What's up with that? We don't like that here. Join the family. We're on the road to 25,000 subscribers. Once we reach 25,000, I'm going to announce a huge project that I'm super excited to work on. So guys, let's get there before the big 2-6, alright? I believe in you. Alright, enough from me, back to the video. James Gunn's Superman brings hope and vibrance back to the character we haven't seen in far too long. Blessed to have seen an early screening of the film, it reminded me how beautiful and hopeful this character truly is. Having seen the Reeves films for the first time with this video, it totally brought back that spirit, not only in look, but in cast, plot, and importance to the character. It's a movie that remembers what Superman stands for. James Gunn has a very specific style, so if you find yourself getting upset over his previous work, this one isn't going to win you over either. There's a lot of humor, heart, color, and emotion in this movie. Sometimes to the detriment of important emotional sequences, the humor can be a little over the top. However, considering this is the vibe I wanted going into this movie, it didn't really bother me too much. I didn't want to see a grounded, dark film. Not to say this movie doesn't deal with heavy subject matter. One of the main twists in this movie puts a lot of things into perspective for Clark that's rather heartbreaking in essence. I'd like to say that David Corenswet was a great Superman. His embodiment of the character is felt here. From behind the scenes to in the film, you can tell he really understands Clark and Superman as a whole. Although I wish we saw more of a Clark persona, he didn't really give off Reeves Clark vibes. I thought his Superman was fun and entertaining to watch, so I hope they dive into his Clark Kent persona a little bit more in future films. This movie ditches the origin trope, and in a similar vein as Spider-Man Homecoming, starts with an established Superman in Metropolis, as well as a Clark and Lois relationship as well. As a casual viewer who knows nothing about Superman, then you may be lost, but considering most moviegoers don't live under rocks, this shouldn't be a bad thing for you. However, the part where this becomes a problem is with the side characters, because most people know Superman, but not many people know the Justice Gang. Yes, they don't go by league in this movie, which consists of members Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl. These characters are given no history or backstory at all, so if you're a casual, you'll probably have no idea why they're here or what they're doing in the story. Honestly, reminded me of a less egregious but still shoehorned in team-up plot like BVS for future installments. At least this has a Green Lantern though, that's cool. Lois as a character is awesome. Rachel Brosnahan perfectly encapsulates Lois Lane's reporter energy, and the chemistry she shares with Clark rivals that of the originals. She plays a very huge role in this movie and in Clark's life, and the entire time I felt like she was very important to the story. She was a very active protagonist. Now, movies are only as good as their villains, and Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor is brilliant. I loved him, dude. He was so petty in this movie, it's insane. His insane plots to take down Superman were genius and so much fun to watch. He may be the best adaptation of Lex we've gotten on the big screen so far. I really liked him. He actually feels like a villain with his pure motivations to just fuck shit up for Superman. And that's great. This movie does play a role in politics, making a fictional war and having Superman be a catalyst for its presence. I thought it was a great storytelling tool. Before BBS went off the deep end, I actually enjoyed seeing Superman and the political ramifications his actions had play a role on society. So I'm glad this movie tackles that. It shouldn't shy away from those types of things because politics plays a huge role in specifically Superman's whole character. I just love the vibe this movie gave off. It's bringing color to every aspect of life here. Everything in this movie has some colorful vibrance to it. The Daily Planet looks awesome. The interior of the Fortress of Solitude looked really great. And Metropolis breathes color into every frame. Even in the clothing that everyone wears, color is such a huge, eye-popping part of the film. Now, I don't love everything about this movie, as I mentioned a few criticisms before. But for instance, there is a major plot line in here that I dislike a lot. But don't worry, this is a spoiler-free review, so make sure you check out my spoiler review this weekend to hear my in-depth thoughts on specific things in the movie. But yeah, there's just something about this one thing that happens to a certain character that I didn't really like. Also, the humor can be grating sometimes, and although the movie's action sequences are fun, I have a feeling the movie will age poorly with its CGI, but I don't know. I thought the pacing for the film was great. Krypto needs to be in more movies, and I'm just happy we have a new DC universe that's breathing new life into the comic genre. I'm a huge DC nerd, and I've been dying for a good live-action DC media for over a decade. It felt amazing going to my theater, seeing everyone there in Superman shirts, ready to watch something they love. Honestly, this film reminded me a lot of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1. Comic book vibes come to life. Totally worth watching. In my opinion, I'm gonna give this movie a high B tier. I think it's a great time. Fun, but it's not a movie that will change my life. However, I'm hoping they keep the same trajectory for David Corenswet's Superman going forward in the future. Before going into these movies, I really underappreciated Superman. I forgot how hopeful, inspiring, and transcendent his place in comic media really is. A lot of slack has come his way in recent years, obviously due to Zack Snyder's detrimental effect on the character past Man of Steel, but also due to his character feeling less and less important in the grand comic genre for a few years. With David's new Superman movie, that popularity for Superman is coming back, and I'm really loving it. However, it's really no surprise that Chris Reeve's Superman remains the staple Superman movie to this day, and it's wild how they got it so right so early on with his portrayal.
Who are you?
A friend.
So here's my final ranking of all the movies. Yes, I do think Man of Steel is still that good, and I liked it more than the latest movie. I will hear none of it. What do you all think? Do you agree? If not, let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. We're on the road to 25K, so if you enjoyed the video, become a part of the community. Also, hit that notification bell so you stay notified whenever I drop a new video, and as always guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.